Okay, everybody, today we are going to learn how to put this little troll on this bridge animated, as I did in a recent video making fun of trolls on the internet. And obviously this troll is looking pretty frustrated that I'm not paying attention to it or something like that. So the process is relatively simple if you know what you're doing. It takes a few steps. So let's go ahead and make this troll on a bridge. Now, first thing we need to do is have a piece of footage to do it with, and I took this video just out in the backyard, obviously one of the bridges here, and it's just a very simple shot. I'm just kind of coming around. I've got the bridge in the scene most of the time, and I had an idea of what I wanted to do. I wanted to put a troll on the bridge or under the bridge or something like that, and so I made sure to kind of get all angles of this bridge and see what I could do. I ended up using just a small piece of it. So without further ado, let's get into Blender. Now I'm using Blender 3.3, and you can get Blender at blender.org. It's a free 3D software, and it's absolutely amazing. I highly encourage anybody who wants to get into VFX, they want to get into 3D, you want to get into anything to do with visual graphics and effects and stuff like that. This is fantastic. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to open a brand new file. And I'm going to open up a VFX. So there's 5 different types in here: general, 2D animation, sculpting, VFX, video editing. I'm going to open up a VFX file and close up this one. And when that happens, you get all these windows. And don't worry, we're definitely going to get through this without issue. Now let's go grab our footage here. So I'm going to take this footage and I'm simply going to just drag it in. That's it. That's all you do, and it's in here. And what we're going to do is track how this footage moves in 3D space. But the first thing that we need to do is set up just a couple of quick things. We're going to go into this tab here called Render Properties. Down at the bottom is called Color Management, and we're just going to change the View Transform to Standard, and that sort of fixes the view, because if it's in Filmic, it sort of looks, everything's kind of washed out. It's really strange looking. Standard is better. Okay, so once we're in standard, it's going to be a little bit better to track. The colors and everything will really come together. And the next thing we want to do, I'm just using my scroll wheel down on this bottom timeline. This is the timeline. We're going to want to figure out how many frames this is. So we're going to hit this button up here called Set Scene Frames. Bam! And that will give us a much bigger timeline. It says here 716. Okay, and then we'll hit prefetch. Prefetch just kind of sticks everything in memory. So essentially when you go to play like this, everything goes lickety split fast. So it just sticks that whole thing into faster access memory. Now, what we want to do is if we play this pressing the space bar, what we want to do is we want to track this bridge, because we're going to put the troll on top of the bridge. Right? No problemo. Now this is not nearly as hard as you might think it is. I'm just going to give you some quick tips here to get this done. And over here is the tracking tab, and it allows us to set up what we're going to do is tracking points. Now this is a very, very, very normal thing to do. Nothing special here. If you ever get into tracking anything, you're going to have some kind of tracking settings to set. Now we're going to set ours to, let's do perspective. We could do perspective or affine. I'm just going to do perspective because the whole perspective is changing. You can see this is a big move coming all the way over and down. So there's a bunch of options in here. There's perspective, affine, location, rotation, and scale, location and scale, location, rotation, and location. Whew, that's a lot. Don't even worry about any of that. We're just going to go with perspective. And I'm going to match to the previous frame. I always do this. Prepass is on by default. It is essentially uses a brute force translation only, initializing when tracking, whatever. Normalize essentially takes this footage and gets rid of, so right, where is it? It's right there. See how we get that glare that comes in from the sun? A little higher up, let's zoom out a little bit. You can see we get these flares from the sun, and normalize will normalize the footage, so it'll try to take that that effect away so we have a better track. We're not tracking anywhere up here anyways. We're really just going to track the bridge. Now, I'm moving around by holding the Shift key and the middle mouse button, and then I'm going to zoom in with my scroll button. And we can zoom in real tight here. That's no big deal. Now, I do want to figure out what part of footage I'm going to use. So I think that I had used something like this, probably, I don't know, let's go to 260. So down here, we're going to set 260, and we'll start this. Yeah, we could just start actually at the beginning. That'd be fine. Right to there. So we're just going to do 260 frames. And again, Shift with the middle mouse button moves this timeline around. I want to center it. I want this to be really obvious because when we go to track, we're going to want to see what we're doing. So let's get started. Now we've got perspective and previous frame set up to set what our tracking points are going to look like. So let's get on with that. But before that, just before that, we're going to go into Clip Display and open up or select the search. You'll see in a second. Okay, so let's track something. Let's press Control and left mouse button, and it'll make a track point. Now, what this search thing did was get rid of that outer box. So let's explain that, because why not? Let's just go over this whole thing. Might as well. You'll learn everything that you could possibly want to learn about tracking footage. So what we've done is I placed a marker on this high contrast rock. There happens to be a rock on here. What luck. It's perfect. So we can see if we go over here into this track panel and just open this up a little ways, we can see this is what we're tracking right here. Or this is what we're going to track. Now this outer area is where it's going to search for this rock. So the inner area, or the area that we're on, so say we really want to hone in on that, we can make this smaller. And if you've got a slower computer, you want to put your search area smaller. Or if you've got a lot of items that look like this in the scene, then you'll want your search area smaller. This is all determined way over here by the pattern size and the search size. So the pattern size is a small square, and the search size is the big square. And that's it. That's all you need to know. So we've got that set. And what we're going to do is we're going to use these controls down here, or you could use controls over here. I just use these bottom ones. And we're going to hit track markers backwards, and then we'll track forward. So we're just going to go ahead and click this button and check this out. Whoop, it already lost it. Why? So let's make this bigger, just like that. And then we'll try again. Bam, look at that. So we've got, let's take a look. What we can do is we can move around our footage a little, maybe zoom out a bit, but we can really look over in this window. This window is the best window to look for to see what our track is doing. So let's just go along, and you can see that it's staying really well on there. Now we don't have any tracking data over here, so we're going to track forward now. And go. Okay, so it's lost the track already. Again, no problem. Don't worry. You see, what happens is sometimes it gets this weird perspective thing going on. And for that, you can just bring this down, bring this over here. Just fix your search area. Just fix your search area. You'll be just fine. And go. Okay, we've lost it again. Why? So go back one frame. The search area is not big enough, or this is too big. So let's just bring this down. And we can bring the search area up a smidge and hit track forward again. And kaplow, just like that. And we can see it again. We're going to look over here. We can see that our track is good. I think it looks very, very accurate. Once you think that you've got a good track throughout your whole timeline, go ahead and hit the lock button. So now we need to do that at least seven more times. And I won't put you through the pain of doing that. I'm going to do that myself here. So what I want to do is, again, look for things that are in the scene all the time. You know, the best thing I can already see is this leaf. So let's make the search a little bit bigger. Let's make our box a little bit bigger. And essentially, we're going to track this leaf. That's it. And again, so we've got that. We can make the search a little bit bigger. It's a pretty obvious thing, very unique thing on this bridge. So we can trust that there's no other leaves on here that it's going to catch. Go backwards. And it doesn't matter if you go backwards or forwards first. I just happen to be doing that, and forwards. Okay, so it's lost it, no problemo, right? It's skewed and it's reaching the edge of this search area. So just go ahead and make the search area bigger. No big deal. Track forward some more, and it looks pretty good, right? The leaf stays, we're looking over here, and the leaf stays pretty centered. It looks great. So we're going to lock that one as well. Okay, so I'm going to do the other 6 while not recording, and I'll just get them all done. But this is what you're going to do. You just take your time, no big rush. I'm going to get a whole bunch all over this bridge, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so I've gone ahead and tracked in a bunch of points, mostly on the bridge, and then one a little bit up there. That should be pretty good. So once we've got all these track points, and it can take a little bit of time, so if you feel a little discouraged here and there, putting in track points and having them track just right, know that it takes patience, and this is a practice thing. Now, if we look down here in our tracking data, we can see that the most of the tracks match, which is good, which is what we want. So fantastic. That's useful when it comes to doing a solve. So that's what we're going to do next. We're going to solve this 3D scene. All right. So let's get on with that. So we'll click the Solve tab over here. We're going to click Keyframes so that Blender sorts out where the keyframes are. We're going to ask it to figure out the focal length and the optical center, and if there's any radial distortion. Doing all 3 of these at the same time, might as well. It refines it for the camera, makes things a little bit more accurate. So the only thing left to do is hit Solve Camera Motion. And now we wait. That was pretty fast, actually. It's done. And what it's going to do, what Blender does, is it sort of figures out which frames to look, or which tracking points to look at, which keyframes. It says 1 and 256 were great frames to look at to figure out this solve. And right over here, we can see that it says a solve error of 0.84. I'm pretty happy with that. Less than a pixel, less than 1 pixel tracking is fantastic. So we are done. This is a done deal. We've tracked this. We've tracked this scene. It's that easy. So if you get anything out of this tutorial, it will be, how do I track a scene and put into 3D? And that's what we're going to do next. We're going to hit this button, set up tracking scene, bam, and it puts it up here in our viewport. So what does set up tracking scene do? Set up tracking scene. So we're going to actually change this one to our 3D viewport. And because we're going to use this to just look at the camera. And then while we're here, let's go to camera, head down into this little camera icon, and in background images, we're just going to put the opacity, the transparency of this video up to 100%. Now, in this view, we can move around with the shift, and it's the same thing, shift and middle mouse button. We can see these are all of our tracking markers here, and this is our camera. So with this camera selected, that's what we do. We just go over here and set that to 1. So then it's really, really obvious. But look, it doesn't look right. There's nothing that is matching up to the scene. And this is the most frustrating part that I felt whenever I was working. So what we want to do is we want to set the origin of the scene. So back down into our tracking window here, and we're going to click one of these trackers to be the middle of our scene. And I like this one because I want to put the troll, or whatever we're going to put here, right on this point. So let's go ahead over here to this button, and this is the Solve tab, and we're going to hit Set Origin. And already what that does is it moves the camera, and you can see where it's inside of the box here. If we just quickly hide this cube like that, we can see that all of our tracking data, all these little plus signs, or whatever you want to call them, crosses, and the camera is down here looking at this center point. In fact, we'll hide the ground for a second here. And we can see right in the middle, this yellow, or this green and red line is the center point. So the camera is looking at, this is the origin. This is the origin of our scene. And that's kind of important. That's a big deal. We want to know that. So let's bring our ground back, and we might as well bring our cube back because we're going to use this to show what's going on. And so the next thing that we can do is set the floor. So all we have to do is find 3 points that will define our floor. And this is a floor. This bridge, this is going to be our floor. So we select 3 points and then hit floor. And what that will do, or theoretically should do, is set things up so that our cube and our plane sit on the floor. Now, the scale is just way off here. So what we're going to do is we're just going to set this to, I don't know, let's put just 3 for now, and we'll just set the scale. Oh, 2 tracks we have to set. So just this one and this one, we'll just set it to 3. And what that'll do is it'll move everything away. And you'll have to trust me when I say that this has got to be the most finicky part of setting up a tracking scene, is figuring out the scale of things. So for now, I just set it to 3 because I want the camera to move further away. And by moving away, it really just gets bigger so that everything else gets smaller. So we can make everything else smaller in this scene. Obviously, anyways, this is a great way to solve it for now. Now, if we look in our scene and we hit play now, we can see things start to stick. Look at that, right? Things are sticking where they should be sticking. So now all we have to do is set up this ground plane. Now the ground plane is what catches our shadows. So we want to keep this ground plane, and it's up here. We'll just keep it for now. We can make a shadow catcher if we wanted to, but we're just going to keep this. Okay, so let's get this plane tracked onto our bridge a little bit better. So we'll go Tab, hit Rotate Z. We're just going to try to get this placed just right. All right. Okay, so that's not bad. So let's go G, Shift Z, so we don't move it on the Z axis. We don't want to move it up or down. Get that over to there. Hit space to see it's tracking in well. Okay, so we're going to grab these two here and G, Shift Z, and bring it on over to here. And then we'll do the same thing with these two, G, Shift Z, so we don't change the Z space of it. And this one, G, Shift Z to there. And this is just a shadow catcher, so it doesn't actually have to be totally perfect. There's a little off. I think I do want to fix just this one here, G, Shift Z, something like that. Just to cover the whole bridge, I just want it covered. And that's fine there. I think that's looking pretty good. Okay, so we'll tab out of that and come out of edit mode and back to the object mode, and we can see that we now have our ground, which is just it's not going to show up as this. You'll see. Okay, so let's grab our cube. Okay, so here's our cube here. Now what we want our cube to do is stick to this. Right? This is where our troll is going to go. And that's simple enough. I'm going to bring it up. So hit G, bring it up and over. And we'll see it's just starting to kind of get into there. And this is where you get to be a little bit, you got to be finicky. So we'll move it over a little bit more. I'm just going to get that corner right on that tracking point, right there. Right there. Let's scale this guy down, actually. It's just too big. It's hard to get it just right. And it's just this is what we're going to do with our troll. And that in the end. So it's sitting flat on the plane. That's exactly what we want because we didn't change the angle of the ground. And so then when we go into here, press play, you can see that our cube sits, just hide the ground. You can see our cube is going to sit very nicely on the bridge. And that's what we want. Just like that. So that works out pretty well. That's nice. Now we want to bring in a troll. Okay, so I've come to a site called Miximo, and I have an account here. And this allows me to go in and pick a character. So there's all kinds of characters in here that you can pick from. And it's totally free. You can go get these for nothing. And so there's all these characters in here, and I picked a troll. So we can move around and we can see this is our troll. Very, very detailed too. And I can't believe it's free. Anyhow, so we go to Miximo, get this, and then we're going to select an animation. And inside of here is an angry one. So, I mean, there's all kinds in here. You can have him moving around. You can have him look like he's just, something like that. there's all kinds of, let's use this one. So this one's looking pretty good. His hands kind of go in a little bit, so we'll give a little bit more space for the arms, and they'll be just out a little bit more, and it kind of crosses in, so we'll go a little bit more. There we go. That should work pretty good. Okay, so that looks good. We're going to keep this, and we're just going to go download, just like that. An FBX file is what we want. Hit the download. Okay, so we've downloaded our troll. What we want to do is we want to bring the troll into our scene, and the troll is going to take the place of the cube. Right, so let's go get our troll. So we'll go File, Import, and inside here is FBX. And then I'm going to select a previously used recent directory here where I put my defeated guy. So I had my angry guy before. I'm going to use the defeated guy, put Import FBX. And now we've got this troll in our scene. And is in a T pose right now. So don't worry about this. We're just going to get rid of the cube, hit X, select it, hit X to delete. And we're going to remember we're moving it over to this one here. So we'll grab the bones. So the interesting thing about these characters is they come with this, what's called an armature. And this armature is the bones for the character. So we're going to grab that because that's what everything is connected to. And we want to go to here, right? So we'll go G, right? We'll hold down G, or we'll hit G, Shift Z, so we don't move him up and down, and just move him over. Now we want to rotate him so he's facing towards us. So we'll R, Z, or Z, and turn him towards us, just like that, right? Now, this is obviously in a T pose, so he's just standing there as a T. We can see he's tracked in just fantastically. So we're going to head over to the viewport so it has the shading in it. And we can see now he's properly clothed, I guess we could say. We'll just double check, making sure it does what he's supposed to do. Still all the same. But we want to change over to the animation. Now, the way to do this is to get out of the tracking and head over to the dope sheet. And inside of the dope sheet is the action editor. And inside of the action editor, there are two sets of action. There is the base layer, which is what we're looking at now, where it's just standing there in a T. And then there's layer 0, which is our grumpy troll that is just standing there. And if we go back to the beginning of our clip, you can see standing there, unhappy, and it just plays through just like that. Now he's a little small. I gotta admit, I wouldn't mind this guy being a little bit bigger. So I'm gonna hit S to scale and just make him a little bit bigger. I mean, let's make a nice big troll here, right? And then we can click away. We'll go back to the beginning, hit play. And we've got our troll being angry at the world. And that's it. And that's how we put a troll on a bridge. I mean, that's just the start. There's all kinds of other things that we can do to blend them in a little bit better. As you can see, the color is not quite right. The amount of blur that we've got going on isn't quite right. If we head over to the different shading, and then we hit the render properties and head over to cycles, because we have to do this in cycles. And I'm going to use my GPU to make this happen. And then the last thing we need to do is go into film and then hit transparent. And that will bring our character into the footage a little bit better. And we'll start to see that there will be a shadow, but we only get a shadow if we have light. So we're going to do that. We're going to add a light here. So this is just kind of extra, so you just kind of see there's more to do to add a thing into our scene. So I'm going to make an area light, and I'm just going to bring this up over top, sort of behind, because that's where the sun is. Move it over here, and then rotate it, and something like that. And we're going to go to the light properties, make it much, much brighter, and much, much bigger, like that. And still brighter. And the other thing that we need to do actually is probably use what's called an HDRI, so that inside of Blender, there's these HDRIs that we can use. We're just going to use this forest scene because it actually works out really well. You can see it's a little bit more lit up, really lit up from the top here. So we can probably just bring this back a little ways, rotate it this way, rotate it this way a little, and probably bring the power down. It's a little bit bright now that we use the HDRI. And maybe the size. Right? Something like that. And then once you think you've got it kind of lit, after that it's compositing and all that kind of stuff. But let's do a quick render image. Actually, before we do that, we should probably make sure we're not rendering anything too incredible. So I'm going to change it to 256. Don't worry about all this stuff if you're kind of worried about, how do I, maybe we'll do 512 actually. How do I do all this stuff? Learn all this stuff at another time, but at least you've learned how to track. So we'll render image. You can see here that we're rendering our shadow. So it's doing it in a few different passes. We did the troll, now the shadow, and then it'll do the background. And I can already see we have too much shadow. It's getting cut off. There you go. So now we have a troll that's a little bit dark. We're going to need to light him up from the front a little bit, but he's got this shadow down here. So he actually kind of looks like he's standing on the bridge and lit from behind. We could probably light that a little bit better. And that's how you kind of go about putting a troll on a bridge. So that's the beginning. After that, you need to do a little bit of composition and fix things here and there. But overall, that's how you kind of get it done in a very free piece of software. Blender does not cost a penny. It's totally free to use. Miximo, also free to use. And after that, it's just a little bit of time and patience, getting your tracking, put the little guy in place, and you're done. So hopefully that's been interesting. If you have any questions, of course, ask anytime. And I will see you guys in the next one.